Hello and welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is And Then the Rodeo Burned Down, playing at Ars Nova on 54th Street in New York City. But before we get into this exciting new play, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and get tickets to see shows like And Then the Rodeo Burned Down. Okay, Rodeo, let's go. What did I know about this show going in? I knew the show was going to be funny. Just looking at this, I knew it. And I knew it was going to involve rodeo clowns. Just looking at this, I just knew it. And I knew it was going to be unusual. Walking in, I had this feeling that this is not going to be a typical evening of theater. And I knew that the show had done very well at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which, if you don't know, is the largest arts festival in the world, held every summer in Edinburgh, Scotland. It is a massive deal, thousands of shows, and to stand out there is genuinely hard to do. I also knew it was going to be about 70 minutes, and for the kind of show I suspected this was going to be, that felt about right. And I also read the program before the show. I always do that. That's the one opportunity that the creatives have to tell me what they want me to know before we begin. And there was this section called How We Got Here, which is the development history of the show. And I thought that was really smart, actually, to include this, because it gives you context for what we're about to see. And when you understand what it took to get a show from Edinburgh to New York, you kind of walk in with a different set of eyes and ears and nose, because it smelled like popcorn, it smelled like a rodeo, it smelled like a circus, and I appreciate the attention to detail. So let me fill you in on a few things, because this is an interesting story. This show was written and first performed in August of 2022 at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and it won the Fringe First Award. The Fringe First is one of the most prestigious awards you can win at Edinburgh. It's given by the Scotsman newspaper to shows of outstanding new writing, and it's a very big deal. The creators are a New York-based duo, Xhloe Rice and Natasha Rowland, who perform together under the name Xhloe and Natasha. Makes sense. And here's the thing. They didn't just win the Fringe First once. They went back to Edinburgh the next year with a new show called What If They Ate the Baby, and won it again. Then, the year after that, they took a letter to Lyndon B. Johnson or God, and they won it a third time. 3 consecutive Fringe First Awards, which is extraordinary. That's got to be a record. They have been called the Fringe's most dynamic theatrical duo by The Telegraph, and one of the most promising young theater makers to emerge from Edinburgh Fringe in recent years. That's a quote. They also have a Broadway Baby Bobby Award for excellence, an Offie, which is an Off-West End Award, and they are represented by the Gersh Agency. These two are going places. Now, Rodeo had actually been to New York before. It played the Ant Fest at Ars Nova in June of 2025, which is kind of a showcase festival. And from that, Ars Nova's artistic team connected with them about a future collaboration. By December 2025, they decided to produce the full off-Broadway premiere of And Then the Rodeo Burned Down. Rehearsals began in April of 2026, and here we are. And I love this cover. It's beautiful. So this show traveled from a Fringe venue to Edinburgh in 2022 to off-Broadway in 2026. That is the journey. And I think that context matters when you go see it, which is why I wanted to share it with you. Okay, so what is And Then the Rodeo Burned Down actually about? Well, it's kind of in 2 parts, and they feel a little different from each other. So let me walk you through both. The first part is essentially a play within a play, and it's set at a rodeo. The main character is Dale, a rodeo clown who desperately wants to be a cowboy. And following Dale around everywhere is his shadow, who is called Dilly Dally. The shadow mirrors everything Dale does, and Dale finds this very annoying, but it's entertaining for the audience. The physical comedy and the timing between these 2 performers is really, really good. Now there's also Barnaby the cowboy, who is essentially Dale's aspirational ideal and the thing that Dale wants to become. And Barnaby, let's just say, is not exactly a warm and nurturing mentor. There's a scene where Barnaby is teaching Dale how to smoke a cigarette, and the way he explains which end is which, I don't want to give it away, but it really cracked me up. It's one of the funniest physical comedy bits I've seen in a minute. And these two, Xhloe and Natasha, play all these characters. There's also Arnold the Bull, who escapes and has to be wrestled back under control. The show uses classic American music throughout. It starts with Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. There's a couple of Elvis Presley songs. We get Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire, which keeps the energy up and gives the whole thing this great country carnival feel. Now, partway through the show, something shifts. The lights go out, and when things come back, we are no longer at the rodeo. We're now on a stage. The two performers are now playing themselves. They're referred to as the performer formerly known as Dale and the performer formerly known as Shadow. They break out of the fiction entirely, and they start talking about the fact that they ran out of money. They can't afford the ending. They literally cannot afford to finish the show. And this is where the show becomes something else entirely. It becomes a meta-theatrical conversation about what it costs to make art, about the pressure to succeed, about who gets to tell stories, and at what price. They debate who burned the rodeo down. Was it Dale? The Shadow? Barnaby? And none of the suspects quite add up. At one point, someone says, "We can't afford a red herring." At another point, "Save your words, money's tight." It is absurdist, but it is also really pointed and holds a lot of truth. And then it ends with the two of them, spoiler alert, and then it ends with the two of them putting their clown makeup back on, ready to start the whole cycle again, blackout. Now, I hope I haven't surprised anything. It's not like these are shocking surprises, but I want to talk about the show as a whole, so I kind of had to give you a lay of the land. Now, I think the closest reference point, and this came to me watching, is something like Waiting for Godot, or Waiting for Godot. That sense of characters trapped in a loop, waiting for something with a kind of resigned hopelessness. And there's also a lineage here that goes back to people like Charles Ludlam and Charles Busch and the theater of the absurd. This is very much in that world. There's also elements of clowning. I think of actors like Bill Irwin and that whole theatrical clowning tradition. So this is a show that is, I think, commenting on the American dream, on idealized masculinity, on what happens when the system is designed in a way that makes it very hard to succeed. And rather than being heavy about it, it wraps all of that in slapstick and country music and absurdist gags. It is clever. It is very, very clever. Okay, let's talk about some positive and negatives. Let's break this down. So what did I love? First, the set. The set is incredible. It looks like a cross between a circus and a Texas rodeo. I'm from Texas. There's a circular platform in the middle with a giant star on it, and the whole space has this circus tent feeling to it. It is a beautiful set. For a show at this scale, it is genuinely impressive design work from Emmy Finkel. Second, the lighting. Angelo Sagnelli's lighting design is really great. It does a lot of the work in shifting the tone between the halves of the show. Thirdly, or actually this could be firstly, because it's kind of the first thing that you see when you look at the program, is the costumes, which Xhloe and Natasha wear as the clowns, and also when they become the cowboy and the bull. These costumes are fantastic. In the playbill, co-costume designer is listed at Christopher Ford, and I assume that Xhloe and Natasha had a lot to do with these costumes. Fourthly, the props. Those are great too. There's a very clever use of these little hideaway drawers built into the floor of the stage, and they keep pulling things out of them throughout the show. It's a great staging device. And also, the acting itself is really good. Their physical comedy is excellent, their timing is excellent, and they work together seamlessly. Critics who have seen the show over multiple years have described them as being so in sync, it's almost like they share a brain, and I can definitely see that. They bounce off each other physically and verbally in a way that clearly comes from years of working together. The cigarette scene kind of hinted at that. Genuinely one of the funniest bits I've seen. And look, one thing the show does that I appreciated early on, one of the characters makes a comment that they have to be careful not to confuse the audience because audiences are stupid, and I felt seen. I think they're saying this knowing that it's a kind of absurd show and they know they're bound to confuse some audiences. So if something doesn't make sense, just go with it. I think that's what they're telling us, and they're not wrong. Now, some things to keep in mind. I want to be careful here because this is a fringe show. It was written to be done at a Fringe. And by the metrics of a Fringe show, this show is incredible. This is kind of a devised piece that feels like it was built in the rehearsal room by two people who are doing the whole thing themselves, and that's amazing. They continue to win awards for this show for a reason. Now, that said, I'm not going to give them a free pass from criticism because it is a Fringe show. There are a couple things worth noting. As I mentioned earlier, the show feels at times like two pieces that have been put together. The first half has its own set of conceits and ideas, and then about 3/4 of the way through, we shift to a completely different mode. Now, that shift is deliberate, of course. Maybe it's the whole point of the show, this idea about commerce and theater, or maybe they didn't know where to go with the narrative, so they opted to abort it. But for a viewer who is enjoying the characters of Dale and Dilly Dally, it can feel kind of disappointing that we don't get to follow these characters to the end of a narrative story. So I felt let down by the last 15 to 20 minutes of the show. And looping back to the beginning for the ending felt kind of like a non-ending and maybe a cheap way out. And I get it. In a way, that is what it is to be a performer. You do the same thing over and over again, and something these two are going to be very familiar with. The other thing is the staging. The show is done in traverse, meaning the audience sits on two sides with the performers in the middle, which is a great choice for intimacy and to give a circus/rodeo feel. But when you have two actors who are doing comedy in a traverse configuration, there are going to be moments where you can only see one face and not the other. So the audience on the opposite side would be laughing at something I couldn't quite see the same way, and vice versa. The direction by Tom Costello does a really great job of always giving us at least one clown to look at, and he moves the bodies constantly, but it is an inherent challenge of this staging with only two performers. My guess is that when they did this at Edinburgh, they were probably on a proscenium stage, which is a very different experience and I think would lend itself more to the comedy of seeing both of these performers. The traverse here at Ars Nova adds something, but it also presents a challenge to the comedy at the same time. So, was I bored? Was I confused? Bored. Mostly no. The show is 70 minutes and moves at a real clip. And I will say, and I say this honestly, I did get a little bored towards the end in that stretch where the show is trying to figure out how to wrap itself up. There's a point where the meta-theatrical conceit of we can't afford the ending starts to circle back on itself a bit, and I was aware that we were just waiting to end the show. And so there's a brief window where I was thinking, okay, if you don't have anything new to say, let's just wrap this up. So not bored, mostly engaged, but just a small stretch towards the end where my attention did wander a little bit. Was I confused? Well, by design, absurdist theater isn't meant to make complete sense. And after the play, I was discussing it with my friend, and whereas I thought the rodeo was a metaphor for life and the arts, he felt like it was a metaphor for the US government. But hey, maybe that's where, like many people, his mind is in these troubling times. You can't go into this kind of show expecting it to all make perfect sense. I think these artists are more interested in exploring an idea than creating a specific A to B narrative arc. And I'm not sure that they have even decided what everything means for themselves. They're making art and letting you decide what it means for you. This is small, but one specific confusion I had in the world of the play is I thought the rodeo burned down in the first section. There's smoke, there's a red flickering light, and I thought, oh, okay, there's a fire. But then in the second act, the performers, when they step out of the play, are debating who burns the rodeo down and how it's going to happen, as if it hasn't happened yet. And I was sitting there confused, thinking, wait, I thought it burned down. Did it not? Did I miss something? Wasn't there a fire? So sometimes the confusion was par for the course with absurdist theater, but sometimes it was just something in the scene that I just didn't quite follow. All right, let me wrap this up. Here's what I want to say about Xhloe and Natasha. This is a duo that built something extraordinary in a rehearsal room in 2022, took it to a festival on the other side of the world, and have spent 4 years earning their way to Off-Broadway. And that trajectory doesn't happen unless the work is genuinely good and resonating with people. This is theater of the absurd done with a real point of view. It incorporates clowning, it's commenting on the American dream, on the cost of making art, and what it feels like to be at the bottom of the ladder staring up. It's wrapped in slapstick and clowning and country music, and it's genuinely funny physical comedy, which means it never gets preachy. It is trusting the audience to take it in and find their own meaning. These are performers building a devoted fan base, and you will want to keep your eye on them. So, reasons to see the show. If you like theater of the absurd, this is your show. If you're someone who sat through Waiting for Godot and felt something and wished there was more shows like this, you will feel something here, and this has dance in it. If you like clowning and physical comedy and shows that take risks, this is a show for you. If you are not a theater of the absurd person, if you do not like clowning, I would just flag that going in. It's not a conventional narrative. There are moments that are deliberately strange and don't resolve the way you might expect. But I would also say it's only about 70 minutes. There is a lot to enjoy. The dances are fun. The physical comedy is great. The laugh I got from the cigarette bit alone is worth the price of admission. So if you're curious, just go. Worst case, you're out of an hour of your life and you've seen something genuinely unusual. How did I get my tickets and where did I sit? I got press tickets for this one, which I'm very grateful for. I sat to the side towards the back, but I want to say it doesn't matter where you sit in this theater. It's only about 70 seats. It's very, very intimate. Not a bad seat in the house. Wherever you end up, you are going to be close to the action. Where do you get your discount tickets? I don't know. I'm still looking into discount ticket options for this one, and I'll add a comment when I come across some opportunities for discount tickets. So check the description below for any updates, and as always, TDF and membership programs are usually a good place to start for off-Broadway discounts. And then the Rodeo Burn Down has been extended through July 2nd, 2026 at Ars Nova, 511 West 54th Street. So get your tickets at arsnovanyc.com. Check the show out, come back, let me know what you thought, and I will see you at the next one. Bye. Don't want to drift